Hey, I hope you're all doing well. This is video 9 in Successful Living, and we've been reviewing the book of Nehemiah. It has amazing principles of how to handle the obstacles in our life and how to move forward with the things that God puts on our heart. So last week we stopped at where Nehemiah received permission from the king. He received the wood to help rebuild Jerusalem and Judah and the gates of the city. He received an army to go with him to keep him secure, and he received a letter of permission from the king. So God put something on his heart, weighed so heavy. He got permission from the king, and then he got everything he needed to do the work. When he got there, he went out and walked around the city of Jerusalem and just wept because the gates weren't even passable. And as I mentioned earlier, this was almost 100 years after Cyrus had decreed that all the Jews living in exile from the Babylonian conquer could go back to their hometown if they wanted to. So there were people living in that area and in that city, but they had no protection. They were a laughing stock and scorned by their neighbors in the surrounding area. And I was talking about how Sanballat and Tobiah, who were their neighbors, were so mad that they were trying to rebuild the wall. They were so mad that they were trying to move forward with their life. And I was like, beware of people who appear to be your neighbor or close to you and are just not happy when you move forward with God. Today, what I want to talk about is Sanballat and Tobiah as well. Because when Sanballat really realized that they were going to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, he not only got together with his brothers, but he got together with the entire army. And it says here, I'm reading from the Amplified, that he was enraged. He was furious. And it's like, what are we going to let these feeble Jews do? Are we going to let them restore? So you will have people who are going to say, are we going to let this person follow God? Okay. So Nehemiah was heard all of this, and he's like, God, how are we so despised? They really despise us. Let's see. The next it says, when Sanballat and Tobiah, the Arabs and the Ammonites, and the Ashdodites heard the repair of the wall went on, they all conspired together to come and fight. And Nehemiah prayed, and he prayed a prayer of strength. And what they did was they said, hey, you know what, Nehemiah, let's talk about this. Why don't you come out to an open place, all of us leaders of the surrounding areas, you and all the leaders will get together and let's talk about this. And Nehemiah didn't move. They just carried on with the work. So when the enemies heard that we knew about their plot, somehow they found out about it, they all just returned to the wall, each one to his work. And from that day on, half of the servants carried on the work while the other half held the spears in case they actually would attack, because what they planned on doing, number one, was to kill Nehemiah when they came out to an open space to talk, and number two, they threatened to attack the city. That was their plan. They just wanted to destroy what was going on. So some men were employed to work on the wall, and the others were ready to fight. Now those that were rebuilding the wall and those who carried the burdens loaded themselves so that everyone worked. With one hand they held a weapon, and with the other they were building the wall. So they had their swords secured by their side as they were working. And what they had decided to do, because of course the Jerusalem was an entire city, what Nehemiah said is, if you get attacked, blow your trumpets. So I guess they all had trumpets, and we'll all go to that one area. And they just continued to work, and so they carried on, and that's the point. They carried on with the work, half of them holding spears until dawn, until the stars came out, and then the other half guarding. And so two things happened here. Number one, when Nehemiah received the taunts, he just ignored it because he knew he had a work to do from God. Number two, when they asked, hey, come on, let's talk about this. Let's get together and be a team. And, really they were planning on killing him. And Nehemiah had no time for it. He was focused on the work that God gave him to do. And then when they found out about that, they may plan to attack. They were ready for battle. However, even though they were ready for battle, they did not stop the work. And this is a really awesome picture of our outside enemies, our outside obstacles. When we move forward with God, when we have our quiet time, when we establish our priorities, when we are like putting the kingdom of God first, we will have these outside enemies that attack, and it can come in many different forms. And what Nehemiah did was he paid it no mind. He paid it no mind, but he prepared himself. He prepared himself like if he had to work. However, it did not stop him from moving forward to what God had called him to do.